What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be part 3 of the LS Swap Tacoma build series. In this episode, we're going to be cleaning up the engine block, getting it ready to put back together. I'm going to be sandblasting it, as well as sandblasting a lot of the other parts, and getting stuff cleaned up, and possibly getting it painted today. Also, I got my rear end finally for the truck, so I wanted to go ahead and sandblast that, get that all cleaned up and painted. But before we get started, I'm sitting here in front of parts that have been arriving daily. Literally, the parts drivers probably can find my house blindfolded at this point. Almost every day I have parts being delivered. So before we get started, I want to go over some of the parts we have for this build. Okay, so first things first, you're looking at a Nissan CD09 transmission. Now this is the transmission that they put in the Nissan 350Zs, the Infiniti G35s, and honestly I'm not even sure what else. But I did some research. I was trying to decide what transmission I wanted to go with. And I was kind of stuck between the T56, which is, if you're not familiar, is the transmissions they put in a lot of the older F-body Camaros and Firebirds. They put them in the Corvettes for quite some time, and I'm not even sure what else they put them in, the GTOs. But the thing with the T56, it's made to bolt up to an LS, which is great, but they're really expensive. The cheapest really that I could find a T56 for was probably like $3,500 used, and a lot of them, that's with probably 100,000 miles on it, and in most cases that doesn't come with anything else, the clutch, flywheel, anything. So, and then the other problem with the T56 is if something were to go wrong with it, rebuild kits are expensive. To go out and buy another transmission, I'd have to spend another $3,500. So I found a lot of information on these CD09s. Guys have been putting these in a lot of drift cars and stuff like that are LS powered. And there is a company, which I'm going to show you this in a minute, but it's a company called Collins Adapters, and they make an adapter kit for this transmission to bolt up to an LS. Now these transmissions have been known to hold upwards of 1,000 horsepower, which we're going to be nowhere near. So I wanted to stick with a manual transmission. I just like the idea of being able to shift, and I like it. It's a lot more fun to me. I'm not going to be really drag racing this car, so I don't, an automatic transmission to me, it wasn't necessary. So I wanted to have a manual transmission, but I didn't want to break the bank. So I ended up getting this transmission for around $1,000. I think it was a little bit less. It was like 900 or something like that. And that was the cheapest I could find. And this, I think, has 100,000 miles on it, around there. So you figure, so I have, the adapter kit is pretty expensive. I think I paid $1,700, but that is with the T56 bell housing, which will adapt to this transmission. There's an adapter plate, a flywheel, clutch, pressure plate, and I think that's it, and a bunch of associated hardware. So all said and done, right now I'm at probably $2,700 thereabouts into this transmission. I still have to get a clutch pedal, lines, clutch master, and a slave cylinder, but I found those used pretty cheap. So all in all, I'll probably be at about $3,000 with this transmission and all of the associated parts. And what's cool about that is if something ever happens to this transmission, I just go buy another CD09 for say $900, $1,000, and I'm good to go. Whereas the T56, something goes wrong with that, I'm either spending a bunch of money on a rebuild kit or going and spending another $3,500 on another transmission. So that's why I decided to go with this transmission. So I'm going to show you the kit that Cullens Adapters makes to allow this transmission to bolt up to the LS. So this is the Cullens Adapters kit that will allow the CD09 transmission to bolt up to any LS application. So basically how this kit works is you have this custom made CNC machined adapter plate that, you know, basically you have to cut the bell housing off of the CD09. So there's instructions that come with this kit, and it tells you exactly where to cut. So you cut the bell housing off, and then there's a plate on the front of the transmission that you remove. And once you remove that plate, this adapter plate will bolt to that. And then what will happen after that is that will allow you to, sorry, I had that backwards. That will allow you to bolt the T56 bell housing to that. And then this will bolt up to the LS. And then everything else is just T56 parts. So the T56 internal slave will bolt to this plate, and then your flywheel will obviously bolt to the engine, and then your pressure plate and your clutch disc will bolt to that. So everything after that is just T56 parts. You know, like I said, I'm gonna get a T56 slave cylinder. I could probably use any clutch master cylinder, but I'll probably get a T56 clutch master cylinder with the lines, and then a pedal assembly. And then this will be, you know, it should be no different than running a T56, other than, you know, the gearing and everything is going to be different, but everything should work. You know, it comes with all of the hardware associated with it. There's instructions in here, a new pilot bushing. So yeah, this should be awesome. I'll put a link in the description to this company. They were pretty easy to work with, so we'll see how it works, but so far so good. It's really quality, you know, quality parts. So I'm pretty happy with it so far. So here I've got all my other parts piled up. I've got I ordered a front sump oil pan. Now this, you know, I have to run a front sump oil pan on this setup because the way that the cross member and the rack and pinion run on this, where the engine's gonna mount, the cross member and the rack is gonna be like right under this section. Now, this is where the transmission is gonna be. So this is like the back of the engine. Normally on a normal LS, the sump is here, which would be, you know, that's a rear sump pan. This is a front sump pan. So hopefully this will work. It's kind of to be determined. I'm not really sure if this is going to work or not. I may have to make some modifications, but I'm hoping this will clear and everything will be good there. I also ordered I got a used LS6 intake manifold and throttle body on eBay. This, and if you're familiar with the LS engines, you know that the LS6 intake is like probably the best best factory intake that you can put on an LS. They have been shown to have considerable power increases over the stock truck intakes, and as well as like the LS2 intakes, LS1 intakes. So you can find these. They're still pretty expensive. I think I paid for the intake and throttle body, I think I paid like almost 400 bucks, which is a pretty good price for these, but that's still a good bit of money. But to upgrade the intake with like a, you know, an aftermarket intake, you know, they're like $1,000. It's crazy. So but this will not only make more power, but more importantly, it'll allow the clearance between the engine and the hood, because the truck intake sits up a lot higher. I'm almost positive it's not going to clear the hood, so I needed something a little bit more low profile, and I figured what better option than an LS6 intake. All right, so this is the last thing that I wanted to go over. This is a Ford 8.8 rear end that I got out of a Ford Explorer. I don't even know what year it is, probably like a early 2000s, late 90s. The reason I went with this is obviously the Ford 8.8 is one of the best rear ends for any type of swap. They're really durable. Parts are easy to find for them. It's just a really good rear end. The other reason I went specifically with this one, the Explorer one, is they have the 31 spline axle shafts, which are really strong. And this is I'm almost positive this is the exact same width as the rear end in the Tacoma. So I don't have to cut anything down. I just can clean this thing up, do whatever I want to it, and just bolt it right in with really hardly any modification at all. So I did, it's pretty rusty. It needs cleaned up, obviously. I'm gonna sandblast it and paint it. I just ordered, which they just came today, I ordered new backing plates, which came with the parking brakes and the parking brake hardware already on them. I ordered new calipers and brakes. Other than that, yeah, this thing should be really good. This is this does have 373 gears. It's a limited slip. I'm not 100% sure how the 373s, I haven't quite done the math yet with the combination of the CDO9 and the 373 gears. I don't really know if this is going to be the best setup. I may end up gearing this down a little bit more, maybe going with like 355. I think they make 355s, 350s, I'm not really sure, or even like 327s, something like that. So we'll see. Like I said, I haven't done the math at all to see kind of where my RPMs are going to be, in given gears at different speeds. So we'll see. I might just, regardless, I may just run it with how it is, and then once I get the truck up and running, I can always change the gearing and do whatever I want there. But that's that. So without further ado, let's get working. Alright, got the engine block all sandblasted down to bare metal. Get all the heavy scale off, which is what I was really concerned about. So now it's ready to scrub down, clean up real good, and give her a couple coats of paint. fixing, dude? Good. There. There you go. Alright guys, so we got the rear end all stripped. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna let the camera roll. We're gonna cut these brackets off, get this all cleaned up, and then we're gonna lay down a couple coats of fresh paint, and then we'll get it all put back together. We're also masking off the engine block, and we're gonna lay a couple coats of paint on that too. Alright, so we got the engine all masked off. It's ready to paint. This is the stuff that I'm going to use. It's made by POR 15. You know, in my opinion, it's the best coating aside from powder coating that you can use. Now, the way this stuff works, this is the engine enamel that they make. But what you do is you apply the rust preventative first, and then you put the engine enamel over top of that. And this stuff is really thick. You brush it on, and it lasts a long time. Also, we got the rear end all prepped. I wire wheeled the whole thing. I started sandblasting, but it was just a pain, so I ended up just wire wheeling the whole thing. I got all the brackets, the Ford specific brackets, cut off. I do eventually plan on doing like a 4-link suspension on this, but I don't know exactly how that's going to be set up. I want to at least get the truck running and driving, and then maybe do that later on. So I'm probably going to just coat this thing with the POR 15. I got new backing plates, new brakes, new seals, axle seals, pinion seal, new cover. So this thing should be ready to install in the truck. It's going to look really good. All right, so we're just working on cleaning up some of these pistons, and as you can see, this is kind of what they look like before. You know, they're pretty nasty, all carboned up, but there's really no wear. I mean, the skirts have very little wear. You know, they're in actually really good shape. You know, no play in the wrist pins. So we're just gonna clean these up, which, as you can see, I've got a bunch. I got 4 of these already cleaned up. You know, they come pretty clean. So all I'm doing with these is I'm letting them soak in like some lacquer thinner, same stuff that I use to clean my paint guns. It's a pretty aggressive solvent, and that just loosens everything up, and then the carbon comes right off. Look at that. Works really nice. Now I've just been letting these sit, you know, each one I let them sit overnight at least. Really loosens all this stuff up. This is also a really good way to clean your toothbrushes. It prolongs the life of them. Now you're still going to have a lot of carbon down inside these ringlands, and the only real way to get that out is to just scrape it off. So what I do is I just take an old piston ring and I just break it off, and then I just use that and I just run that in these ringlands. The carbon just comes right out. There you have it. It's as easy as that. I've seen people use oven cleaner, things like that, but I don't know. This requires little to no effort. Works perfect. Alright guys, so that is going to be it for today. I know this video was kind of boring, and I apologize for that. But this stuff still needs to be done. Cleaning up parts and things like that, and I know it isn't the most exciting thing, but I promise future videos will be more exciting for sure once I get this stuff out of the way. So that's it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. But until next time, peace.